You're on a plane, which means little personal space. You have a nasty cold and you're sitting in between two people while sounding like you're trying to play your nose as an instrument since the cold is that bad. It's an awkward experience for you and the passengers around you, and as time progresses, the situation gets more awkward, and I mean really awkward. Hey guys, Aastran here. What is of the hyper-level oriented perspective? Now in today's video, I'm going to be sharing the time of my most awkward experience on an airplane. This took place about 2 years ago when I was 15. So one day I wake up and I remember that I have a flight to Florida, and I woke up with a cold that didn't really affect me until the day of the flight. I was feeling some symptoms a couple of days prior, and those days before my flight was not as bad as they were until the day of my flight. When I woke up that day, it was a full-on cold. My nose was stuffy and running at the same time, along with insane sneezing. At first, I thought it would be one of those colds we get in the morning. Then a few minutes to maybe even an hour later, it goes away. But no, that was not the case at all. Going back to when I said insane sneezing, I literally have episodes of 6 to 11 sneezes, maybe even more when I'm sick. Like legit 10 sneezes in succession. The car ride on the way to the airport was just me sneezing and blowing into my tissues. And this did not change when I got to the airport. I boarded the plane and I'm trying to find my seat. Going from the window to the center aisle, there are 3 chairs per row. Eventually, I found the row of chairs that had my seat. I was supposed to be sat in between the aisle and the window seat. The row was completely empty, and since it seemed to me that most people have boarded the plane already, I decided to sit in like the seemingly unused window seat. Keep in mind, throughout this, I had like the tissue held to my nose pretty much the majority of the time. When I could though. I'll get to that in just a second. Now, here's where things get awkward. Not long after sitting in the window seat, a guy came up to the beginning of the row of seats. We made eye contact and I said hi. He stood there for like a second and he said something along the lines of, "Can you please get up? That's my seat." So since planes are not like you pay and you get on and you sit anywhere, but you actually have an assigned seat that you pay for, I got up and let him into his seat. Since there were 3 seats and now the window seat was taken, it left the middle seat, which was actually my seat, and the aisle seat empty. I then sat in the aisle seat. For a few minutes I was in the aisle seat, blowing my nose every so often, most likely making the guy that had the window seat uncomfortable, until the guy who had the aisle seat boarded the plane. This time I had to move to my actual seat, which was in between the 2 people. I moved to my seat and eventually the plane takes off. I don't really remember the reactions of the guy in the aisle seat, but I do remember some of the reactions of the guy in the window seat. So I'm mainly going to be focusing on the guy who was sitting in the window seat. Okay, back to the story. The first few minutes of flight, I was blowing into my tissue and constantly wiping my leaking nose. All these guys heard was just I couldn't really move around to put things in my pocket easily without disturbing the 2 guys that were next to me. So I held my tissue and I just rested my arm on my lap. Now I don't remember what caused me to do this, but somehow I dropped the tissue and it rolled off of my lap and fell in between me and the guy to the left that had the window seat. Obviously the tissue got too close to him. I think I said sorry when I went to pick it up. I don't remember his reaction. Since that was my only tissue and it fell on the floor, I could not use it now. Now I was trying my hardest to hold my snot in. It was one of those colds where you literally had to sniff every 10 seconds. If not, if you're lucky, maybe like once every minute. I could only keep my snot in for like the next few minutes, but after those few minutes, it became too much. I went to wipe my nose with my left thumb, and as I put it down to my lap, there was this super obvious line of mucus spanning from my thumb to my wrist. It looked like the fattest slug had just laid on my thumb and just died and let out 90% of its bodily fluid on my thumb. I knew the guy to the left of me was going to notice, so I tried keeping my head facing forward and I quickly put the snot in the dirty tissue, but the tissue was already saturated by snot and it could not hold anymore. Guess what I did with the snot I couldn't put in the tissue? I rubbed the rest of the snot that was still on my thumb into my jeans, trying to act as if nothing happened. I thought it would be more awkward to say sorry or something. Thinking about it now, I don't know which one would be more awkward. The guy obviously knew what had just happened and started to show signs of being really uncomfortable. Emphasis on really. He started moving around and tried to move himself in the opposite direction of me, but since we were on an airplane and space is limited, it was not really effective. He was so disgusted that he even turned his head completely towards the window. I really wonder what he was thinking then. If I had to guess, it would probably be something along the lines of, I paid hundreds of dollars just to sit next to a disgusting snotty kid. Are you fucking kidding me? Keep in mind that every now and then I had one of those sessions of 7 to like 10 sneezes, but since I was on a plane, I had to stifle them as best as I could so I did not disturb everyone. Since I had no tissues, I really had to stifle my sneezes. They kind of sounded like okay, that was a bad imitation of what happened, but like, imagine that, but with like 10 times the wetness. When they did happen, they were still audible and people said bless you. I did not think about it before, but at the time, my parent was sitting directly behind me and came clutch by asking if I needed more tissues and then supplying them to me. When I'm on a plane, I always like to look out the window. So I was constantly looking through the window, which was in the direction of this guy, who was probably more than uncomfortable. I feel like he got tired of me looking in his general direction, so he pulled down the window cover and I couldn't look outside the window anymore. I think he might have done this out of passive aggressiveness, although he did eventually fall asleep, most likely wanting to bypass this situation and hopefully wake up when the flight was finished. But it could have been him wanting to get away from the situation, or he was just tired, or maybe even a bit of both. But I believe he really did not want to be next to a snot dripping kid, so he tried to bypass the situation in the form of sleep. This whole life experience was really uncomfortable and really awkward. Like, it was probably absolutely appalling to the people next to me. I just really feel bad for like the people next to me, because like they literally paid hundreds of dollars for their plane ticket, not only to get from place to place, but to sit next to someone who was sick the whole way there. And I hope to never have a plane experience this awkward ever again. So guys, if you've enjoyed this story, please leave a like and comment down below your most awkward situation. The end screen should be popping up now, and right in the middle should be my profile picture, and if you click that, you can subscribe. This has been Aastran, and I'm out. Have a good one.